Who would be your dream speaker at Tech Fest?
Who would be?
Yeah, so if you could choose anyone that hasn't been, obviously, but your favorite person.
If I could have anybody in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I don't even ask myself that question. Well, I'll tell you this. Craig Ventnor or George Church. George Church is probably the most important person on the planet at the moment, and nobody really knows who he is. He's the head of genomics at Harvard.
Yep.
And what makes him so interesting is he's made life out of non-life in a lab.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the first person to actually achieve God status. He's made a living cell out of non-living materials.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like writing the first computer program.
Sure.
Yeah, is what it's like, but it's with really bio coding instead of computer coding.
Yeah.
And that is going to become something that becomes much more common, 100 years from now. Is like just like computer programs are today, and we write programs. We're going to create living things, just like theoretically God has been doing. We're going to create animals. If you could, long neck gene and a super fast running gene, and then throw all these things together, and boom, you've got yourself a Tyrannosaurus, a giraffe mix, whatever it is.
So we've gone through 3 major industrial revolutions.
Yes.
Mechanic, and then mass production, and then digital, and now we're going to see number 4, which almost every scientist and scholar is saying is going to be the biggest one.
Right.
AI and biotechnology combined.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thing.
It is very
as far as
scarier than you think, actually. Here's why. I was in an event, a very small gathering, 10 folks for a weekend with George and Craig. Craig was the first to de-sequence the human genome, the human DNA. And both of them said in our little weekend gathering that somebody asked him, what George was talking about, what concerns him is the funding for good research is being killed by the US government, and that China is going to surpass us, in genetic research. And somebody in the room, it was actually Sean Parker from Facebook and Napster. He was one of the 10 people in the room. He goes, is that your biggest concern? And George goes, no. And he said, what is your biggest concern? And he says, do you really want to know? And the whole room's like, yeah. He says, well, yeah. He goes, you know how, it was a bunch of computer folks in the room. It was like Larry Page from Google and Elon Musk and folks. He's like, yeah. He's like, you guys are all nerds, right? Yeah. Okay. So you know how computers in the 1950s were only accessible to governments, and then later the biggest universities and the biggest companies, and then 10 years later big companies and big universities, and then medium-sized companies and medium universities, and then we get down to the PC revolution. And then 1990 was the PC revolution, $1,000, everyone gets a computer, and then computer viruses came about that early on were very damaging to the huge networks of the internet early on. He says, well, here we're at that stage now with computer price availability, where in the next 5 years we're going to hit our PC revolution, and ISIS is going to take the most deadly virus in the world and combine it with the most contagious virus in the world and let it loose on the inhabitants of the world, and it's going to kill 1/3 of the people in the next 5 years. So that's what worries me. And the whole room was like, oh shit, what are we going to do about that? And
it's hard to have an answer for that one.
There isn't an answer. And then the next day, Craig Ventnor is doing his day with the group, 10 of us, and the first thing, everyone's got their hand up, what worries you the most? And he's like, you really want to know? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, well, here's this curve, in the next 5 years, this is going to happen. So since then, even Bill Gates was asked recently, what's his biggest concern? And he says very clearly, he says a global pandemic that's going to, wreak havoc. And then the Gates Foundation last month did a tweet where they do a computer simulation of exactly how this is going to unfold, what it's going to look like and how long will it take to. And within 3 months, 1/3 of the planet is dead. So, and they found out more recently, this actually has already happened in China. A technician in a lab created this monster virus, which is rather simple to do for like a computer engineering, a bioengineering hack. And fortunately, that hasn't left the lab. And that person.
How did they know it happened?
that scientist was killed. He's no longer exists, and we're very fortunate that that didn't leave the lab, or we probably wouldn't be sitting here. And it's the good news is the lab technicians didn't let it leave the lab. The problem is, like I said, it's 5 years away before people with bad intentions have their hands on those tools. Yeah. So when we talk about this fourth wave, revolution, innovation, it's a bit beyond our control. The tools that we're making are becoming so powerful that they have so much impact that people worry about AI all the time. We should be equally worried about the genetics. And the problem is as innovators, we're optimists generally, and we have good intentions generally, and no one's out there building tools to enable ISIS to wipe out the world.
Yep.
However, that is the consequence that we often don't consider as innovators, which is
even the stuff you talk about now is like someone maliciously doing something to harm other people.
Right.
But when we talk about the big threats, it's global warming, it's nuclear holocaust,
water deprivation, water stress.
Sure. Yeah. And then another one, besides the one you just said, AI and biomechanics combined is inevitable.
Yeah.
The other ones we're trying to suppress.
Yeah.
But AI, it's gonna happen. Like it's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna take us somewhere, and someone's gonna be first. And like every other revolution in the past, the people that done it the first kind of set the tone for the rest of the century. And I mean, who is going to do that now? Who's
China.
The first at this?
China's going so fast into AI and genetic engineering, and the U.S. is a bit more slowed down in regulatory, process. And the Chinese government sees AI as a huge asset. They're doing facial recognition on every single citizen. Yeah. They already have it. Yeah. It's called SenseTime. Sure. It's the fastest growing company in the history of the world. It makes Uber look like the slowest growing company on the face of the planet. It's gaining valuation in the first 2 years at $1 billion a month. It's insane. And it's a facial recognition for every person in China. They just caught some guy at a soccer game, a football arena in China. Yeah. Out of 60,000 people, and he walked into the game. There he is. Here, now. So what happens when every face is tracked by the government everywhere you go? Because it's as simple as putting a camera somewhere now and connecting it to the algorithm, and then the history of everything that you do is going to be, we think of presidents or people running for politics, and they have skeletons in their closet, right? What happens if things that we did in the last 5 years, we think people aren't going to find out about it? They're going to find out. Sure. It's like everything's going to be known, and everything's going to, whether we want it to or not, it's going to be a bizarre world, and it's hard to imagine.
It's a scary proposition.
Yes. To answer your question, China is so embracing of this as a form of control, because that's what they do, that's what they want. And they've built their own, walled garden internet, and they've got complete control of it and everybody in it. And imagine trying to contain 1 billion people from saying anything negative about you. That's not easy to do unless you have insane control. And they're using, they're going headstrong into that in a way that the US just is not, or anyone is. I was just there, I was there yesterday, and it's, I'm doing my monthly events there now, and it's part.
I heard in Hong Kong.
Yeah, but it's partly to just be closer to it, to feel in Hong Kong, difference. Just to feel the pace and the energy and the approach. They make the pace of innovation in the valley look incredibly slow, and which is
over here, or like
in China. The Chinese pace of pushing the future.
They make the rest of us look slow.
It makes everybody. It makes Silicon Valley, which was the previous standard of innovation, and all seem completely geriatric.
And it feels like they've learned from the past too. So they were a little bit behind the ball on mass production, a little bit behind the ball on digitalization as far as the whole society. Yeah. They learned a lesson, now they're going to be first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So being an unscripted event, I'm going to turn off my.
Go for it.
No, I'm not answering that. I just got to. I got to stop it from buzzing in my pocket.
What would be your perfect wish for entrepreneurial Stockholm? Like what's needed to drive entrepreneurship in Stockholm even faster and further?
Yeah, I was about to say we don't need anything at this point. Like things are going really, really well here at the moment.
Yeah.
What would make it go even faster is a government like the Singapore government, the Israeli government, you know, the Chinese government. They are pushing the innovation agenda. They are.
How do they do that?
In many ways, funds. In many ways, the people making the decisions themselves are deep believers and enablers of tech as the way forward. Sure. Even David Cameron's, office at 10 Downing Street in the UK. Now it's Theresa May, but previously, Macron in Paris. Yeah. He's pushing Paris. Like, we don't have anyone here pushing anything. No. Matter of fact, they're like, let's just enough's enough, log 'em, whatever, Yeah. Log 'em tech. Hashtag log 'em tech.
Hashtag log 'em.
And certain countries really look at tech as an enabler to move forward, and
not the driver.
But here it's like, let's not disrupt the big companies who have things going so nicely here. Let's not disrupt anything. It's going to be nice. We're all going to be friends. And it's like, yeah, we are, but it would be nice to have leadership that was like, maybe not. Maybe it turns out that, China's going to be the one that creates the virus, as it already did. Probably no coincidence, they're the ones pushing things, and they're going to get wiped out first. So they're going to create the drone army, AI-enabled biomechanic army. Maybe they're going to open Pandora's box earlier than the rest of us. And then, funny enough, in that Bill in the Gates Foundation simulation that I was talking about, that they tweeted about recently, China is the one that gets totally wiped out first. It's like 4 months into the simulation, a third of the world's wiped out. Most of it's China.
You've been doing Tech Fest now in Stockholm about 5 years.
This is 5th year, this next week, yeah.
Sure. And what is it, if you're going to pick one or two things, what is it that you enjoy the most out of producing this and creating this community?
I love seeing Stockholm get the respect I felt it deserves. I think everybody feels Stockholm deserved more respect. It was just I was adamant about correcting it. Yeah. Because I'm not a Swede, and so I felt like I could play a more neutral role in setting the facts and setting, because a Swede can't be like, nah, we're great, we deserve respect. It's like, that's not the Swedish way.
Unless you're Trump.
Yeah, and I'm far closer to Trump, than any Swede. So let me be the one to go out there and be the loudmouthed, kind of.
And say that we're good. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
doing that.
It's a win-win. I'm a bit of a cheerleader, and but it was real.
For yourself, if you go to you,
yeah.
What do you?
But I love that. I love seeing Stockholm get recognized for what it is. Okay. It's a fantastic place for innovation and creativity.
Okay.
And
another question then: when do you feel the most appreciated for the work you do?
I get my inbox is full every day of. The first line of nearly every email I get is, Tyler, love what you do. Thanks so much for everything you do. And it's like, how do you not, I don't need anything else. I don't often like to do necessarily interviews and things. And I'm not trying to build my personal brand. I don't even live here. I certainly don't do magazine interviews. I'm trying to, the ecosystem is the star here. Yeah. That's what deserves respect and attention. Sure, I get plenty of praise. I get plenty, enough. I don't need any more of that. So I'm not, but that isn't the reason to do it. To me, it was like correcting a wrong. I thought Berlin was getting.
Well, you are a big part of creating the ecosystem.
No. I wouldn't say that. The ecosystem existed.
Sure.
It was. There's different metaphors you can use, but it was like. I was helpful in getting more attention for it and helping in various ways. But the ecosystem was here. It just needed a little more combining the ingredients. it's like you have a kitchen and you've got all the ingredients, but to make cake, you got to put the eggs with the flour, with the water, with the sugar in the right combination and start mixing it in a bowl. Yeah. But the ingredients were here. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really add anything to the ingredients in a way. So.
Well, speaking of the ingredients and where we are.
Yeah.
We're at Alma.
Yeah.
One of the hubs in Stockholm.
Which is an ingredient in the community. Yeah.
Sure.
The co-working space.
I know you love it.
I do. Yeah.
Can you tell us why?
Alma's a special place. As you kind of show some footage around, it's just I think of it this way. Within Stockholm Tech Fest, the main event is called the investor startup matchmaking, where that's where the deals happen. Yeah. And to me, that's the heart of that event. It's like,
so what drives things forward?
Yes, startups getting invested in. Yeah. That's what drives things.
Make them grow.
Yes. So ultimately, the panels and the debates and the discussions very subtly move the ball forward. Sure. A startup getting funded, far more so, actually. So I really focus on trying to enable more investments to happen. So that little event happens here. Yeah. And that's not a coincidence.
This year.
This year and last year. And then within Stockholm is a creative capital of the world. Yeah. It's starting to get recognized that way, partly due to brilliant minds. I think my dear friend Ash and Daniel and Natalia do the brilliant minds.
His birthday yesterday.
I had breakfast with him this morning at my hotel, for his birthday. Yeah. So, he does. We both have a similar passion for that. About letting the rest of the world know that there's something special going on here, and that this is a creative capital of the world, if not the creative capital of the world. And within this city, you have these certain spots that really bring a lot of awesome creative people together. I can't think of. You have some amazing agencies here with a lot of brilliant people in them. This Alma is really special in that it's individuals, amazing creative individuals from lots of different disciplines, in various arts and tech, and all sit here together. And actually, one of the best AI minds in the city sits here. One of the best, So it's a really cool mix.
So since we're already into talking about where we are today with Tech Fest becoming Tech Week, why now? Why did that transition happen now? And
because it was actually said year one when Tech Fest was just starting. I said 5 years from now, hopefully we'll have Tech Week. Mm-hmm. And
so it was always a plan.
It was always the aspiration. It just happened to be a correct guess or prediction. And then we started taking concrete steps. Each year we've added more to the event. So 2 years ago added a whole second day of the conference. Last year added 30 separate events we call the Safari. This was the first year where some of those Safari events were really proper conferences. Wow. I don't know. That's a lot of traveling. I got something on the plane. Yeah. Oh shit, it's already started. Oh no. It's
let's hope not.
That would be scary. If I die in the middle of the
pandemic is coming through you.
That would be amazing. Anyway.
So, Tyler, I think we touched on this earlier. We're both American. Yep. I became an American fairly recently, which means I follow US election at least as close as Swedish, probably more.
Yeah, it's more interesting, isn't it?
It's more interesting because we have a fascinating guy. Yeah. No matter what you say, bad or good, fascinating because he's changing everything in how we interact with each other and, partying societies or, it's just fascinating. Yeah. It's hard to look away. It's kind of like a train wreck.
It is. It's in a car crash in motion.
So if we talk about that and we also talk about Swedish election. Just kind of start with your take on Trump, maybe, and you can go as deep as you want. Okay. And then, the Swedish election and what's coming across all over Europe, the nationalism movement and stuff like that. Yep. I'd love to hear your take on that.
Did you see a friend of mine, an American friend of mine who lives in Stockholm, recently saw, he's English rather.
Sure.
an advertisement in Facebook that looked like an ad. I mean, it looked like a regular post. They were trying to disguise it.
Sure.
And it was saying that it was a CNN post,
Yep.
but it wasn't.
Yep.
And it says, now you can get a Swedish passport in 10 days for 1,000 crowns.
I see those things all the time.
And it shows these immigrants getting Swedish passports.
Not only do I see them, but I have like American intelligent friends that keep sending me stuff like, hey, is this true? Because I've debunked them a few times. They posted something and I'm like, Arthur or Nicholas, this is ridiculous. You can't post that. It's not true.
Right.
So now, instead of doing it, they send it to me or they post and say, Patrik, is this correct about Sweden?
Right. And because, well, I think the people who are creating and paying for those ads before an election, no coincidence, are trying to drive up votes for SD.
Sure.
Because it scares the people who see those as like, what? Immigrants are going to get passports now, you know, in 10 days for 1,000 crowns? Like, what's this craziness?
Yeah.
And they're not true. It's scaremongering, and it's pushing people towards SD. Now, it's either SD running those campaigns, which I think they would get caught if they were trying to do that. They're not smart enough.
Someone else.
But I think the people who really have an interest outside of Sweden in doing that is Russia. And Russia's been doing that in Moldova very overtly. I was thought
US, it's
US is very, very clear. So my point is, Russia's been using, no, I mean, wars used to be fought with airplanes and missiles and whatever, it's very expensive, and it's not politically correct to have them anymore. But why even bother when it's so cheap to hire a great hacker who can go in and cause havoc? That's my take on, you know, Russia clearly wanted to influence the US election. And I think they're like the dog that caught the ambulance, as we say. It's like, you know, I think they were managed
the dog that caught the ambulance.
Yes, like the dog chases the ambulance, you know, not even really thinking it will ever catch it.
Sure.
And, you know, but when the dog does catch it, it's kind of surprised. Well, I can't even believe we managed this.
Yeah.
And
kind of like Trump becoming president.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying is when Russia pulled that off, you know, it was like, I don't think they ever dreamed that would ever really happen. Nobody did. Everyone laughed at the concept. And it just goes to show you just how embedded tech is into our lives these days.
And it's gonna get
it'll get worse, of course, but and more so that Trump is, you know, decommissioning, you know, the powers inside the intelligence community that would prevent it from happening again. So it's like he's rotting the apple from the inside out.
So that is one thing Trump is doing. To me, like from the outside, it seems almost systematically. He is like alienating his old allies. He's like pushing people away that are his friends. I mean, Germany and England and people that, I mean, the countries that have been together with the US on the same page forever. And now it seems like he's throwing these ridiculous kind of small-minded things that you do to a friend when you're young. That's happening now on a global scale. And that is hard for me at least to understand why you would do that. Yeah,
the funniest thing I've seen recently was a 14-year-old is running for mayor of some Pennsylvania, and there's no laws that say he can't actually, and that wherever he's at.
There should be a law saying you have to be 18 or 20, 21.
Not anymore. There shouldn't, because the funniest comment on it was me, 10 years ago. Ha ha ha, crazy kid. Me today, what do you got? Show me what you got, kid. Yeah. I might as well consider what you have, because you can't be that much worse than what we currently have. So, the U.S. is in a real mess politically, and it'll be, it was in part a reaction to Obama. You have a lot of people.
Sure.
I was very pro-Obama. I really liked Obama, but you had a whole bunch of people who were racist, who were angry and hated him and wanted to react in a big way. And Trump was pandering to that audience, saying, elect me and I'm going to make America white again. Or,
and all that.
But he's like, I'm your guy if you want to give the big middle finger to the previous administration. So
it's really bad timing to exclude yourself from the world community, as we have these things that threaten us that can only be solved if we do it together. Like global warming,
yeah, I get you.
nuclear war,
Totally.
like AI. It can't be solved by 1 or 2 or 3 nations.
Right.
We have to do it together. So it's a really bad timing to exclude yourself from the talks.
Of course. But that would be Russia's interest. If they're dictating,
Why would Russia? Do you think?
they want Trump to make the worst decision. I mean, if you sat down, you're like, how could I deconstruct America? Like, here's all the, make sure that they disconnect from all of their allies. Check.
Actually, I saw this documentary recently about Russia having kind of convinced their people that global warming is good for them because they're so far up north and it's good for them to get warmer. That there's going to be shit for other nations, but for them it'll be good. They've actually indoctrinated this thought into a lot of Russians.
because they're not really sea-bearing, which the countries that really get screwed have a lot of ocean, which Russia doesn't.
Sure.
Actually. I mean, they do have a one
Yeah,
side.
they're up north, so it takes.
Yeah, they have an incredible amount of landlocked, actually.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. So when it gets warmer, they can do more agriculture, all these things that they haven't been able to do before because it'll be better climate for them.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, really, ultimately for them. Yeah, yeah. There's some truth to that.
Insane.
I haven't seen that or heard that, but I used to think the same about Sweden. I was like, I don't know how bad it'll be for Sweden. Yeah, but
This summer.
It's the new California, baby. It's like get out
Come to Sweden.
Yeah. You just need some waves. That's all you need. Yeah, get out your surfboards.
Brother,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Fun.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll see you next week.
Okay.